Hey guys, Lauren Golden here, founder of The Free Mama and the host of this YouTube channel, FreeMamaTV. And every Tuesday we come with new episodes that answer your questions, tutorials, how-to, action-taking tips and motivation and all that jazz. And today's unscripted episode of FreeMamaTV, I actually want to answer all of your questions. So to make sure that I was answering exactly what you needed to know, I polled you. So I went over to Instagram, make sure you're following over there, Lauren Golden, Free Mama. I went inside of our Facebook group where you can find over 35,000 women just like you. And I said, what's your hang up? What is so confusing to you when it comes to pricing your services as a virtual service provider or a freelancer? And man, did you guys show up. So today it's kind of like an Ask Lauren Anything. We're going to do it Q&A style, and I'm going to make sure that you know everything you need to know to make sure that you are being highly paid, highly sought after, and delivering awesome results for your clients. Plus, make sure you stick around until the end, because if you want to feel more confident going into that sales conversation, having a discovery call, or networking with your prospective clients, you are going to want to get your hands on something that will make you know exactly what to say to make sure that things go your way and also allow you to help this potential client solve all of their problems. It's a win-win. So stick around until the end and I'll tell you how you can snag that cheat sheet. Okay, so after sitting down and reviewing all of the submissions you guys gave with regards to your questions around pricing your freelancing services, I split them up into 4 topics, and I'm going to go through all of those with you guys. Those 4 topics are worth, fear, confusion, and up-leveling. So I kind of pick and chose some of my favorite. A lot of them overlapped, which is not surprising to me at all. And what that should tell you, if you have questions around your pricing, is that you're not alone. You are not the only person experiencing these doubts, hesitations, and imposter syndrome that you might be feeling around setting your pricing and charging inside of your business. So let's go ahead and dive in with our first category, which is worth. And there were 2 really great submissions that came through on this topic. The first is, what am I worth? What is my work worth? That kind of self-doubt and trying to overcome that so I know what to charge. And the second was, first, pricing what you're worth is so hard, especially when you're desperate. Oh my gosh, I just want to say, I relate to this so much from when I first started my freelancing business. A lot of us, I think, with a high necessity for cash and to make it work and to get out of our job or to make ends meet, we have to wrestle with that desperation inside of our business and make sure we're not projecting it as we're meeting with prospective clients. And it's really hard to do. So she says, I think for me, it's the fear of rejection. Wanting to charge a price for the job, but afraid that it will be higher than the client's expectations. So I want to kind of unpack this conversation about worth. And we see a lot of girl power and encouragement and charge what you're worth online. And I believe in that. Here's the deal. We are inherently worthy people. And that's some deep personal development mindset work that we all have to do to believe that other people would want to pay us. Both in our business, but also even without a successful business, we are worthy. We are good, worthy people. And so learning to kind of separate those things and believe both of them can be lifelong work for a lot of us. With that being said, I think a lot of people kind of drink the pink Kool-Aid when they get into personal development online, and they hear a lot about charging what you're worth. But the reality is your business and your work is only as good as the results that you produce for your clients. And that's kind of some tough love right there. And that might be hard to swallow if you haven't done something before. But let me be clear, just because you haven't done something doesn't mean you're not capable of doing it. Think about what you would tell your children if they wanted to go try something for the first time. It might not be perfect, but if they're capable of listening, working hard, following instructions, being resourceful, all things that make you a great free mama, then you're still going to be able to get the result at the end, right? You just have to be willing to put in the work to get the result. And from a business perspective, that's where your worth and ultimately your pricing is going to come from. With that being said, you're probably not going to start at where you want to end. You're probably not going to start with that 6-figure salary if you're wanting to do something that you've never done before in your freelancing business. And here's what's really cool. That's okay, because unlike going out and getting a real salary from a 9 to 5, when you're self-employed, you can give yourself a raise anytime you want. In fact, I teach something called the staircase method. We'll link to that video so that you guys can go check it out. But the whole concept behind this pricing is that you're going to start where you're going to build your confidence, where you are going to get those easy wins so that you can kind of feed that desperation of like, I need cash coming in. I've got to make this work. You're also going to build your confidence by saying, okay, I can get clients. I can build a business. And through that staircase method, you're going to incrementally increase your pricing and you will end up where you want to be. And you don't have to wait a year for an annual review or for someone else to determine that you get a raise. Because you build your confidence, because you build your experience, because you build the quality of your work through hands-on experience, not just buying courses or sitting back thinking about it, you will become more confident as you go, not just about the results that you produce, but also about the pricing you set, because there's an interesting relationship between time and money. And that is that a lot of times when we're starting, because we have these feelings of desperation, our focus is on money. We value money, but the reality is you can always make more money. We might not feel that way when we're desperate, but it's true. There's a lot of money out there to be had. You can't always get your time back. So something really cool happens when it comes to charging your worth as you build your confidence in your skill set and in your own worthiness of your work, is that at some point you will prioritize your time over the money. And then you're not going to take those lower end clients anymore. Then you're going to know exactly what you need to charge to not feel resentful towards your clients that you do take on. And it takes some time, because it takes some clients, it takes some experience. You actually have to live this to be able to know truly what I'm talking about. But I have thousands of students who have been able to do this, and it's beautiful. And in fact, I always make them stop and acknowledge this level of growth in starting your own business when you get to that point where you value your time over the money, because you know your worth, and you know you can always go and get more money and get more clients, but you can't always get your time back. So it's a process. I think that inherent worthiness is a lifelong thing, and there's a lot of mindset that goes into being a business owner. You guys thought we were all going to be about tactics today, but turns out that 3 out of our 4 topics are really more about what goes on between our ears as opposed to what we're going to write into a proposal for our clients. So with that being said, let's move on to the second one. There were a lot of questions and feedback from you guys that had to do with fear, which really it's kind of right next door to the worth conversation. Because again, we're really talking about mindset. It's our own limiting beliefs. This isn't like, oh, I don't know the average of what virtual assistants charge, so how do I price myself? You can Google that. Right? That's not the hard part. Like, I could sit here and list all those things out for you, but again, you're a free mama, so we want you to be resourceful. You can go Google all of those things. You can do market research in Facebook groups to figure out the tactics. And we are going to get to tactics at the end for up leveling. But the mindset stuff is really hard. So one of you submitted that I think the fear that if we ask for a certain amount that we won't get the client. Do you guys see how that is a belief that this person has formed that says, you know, if I charge too much, no one's willing to pay me that. Do you see how this fear is so connected to the worthiness conversation? But here's what we've got to think about, you guys. Like, there are people who will go get a hamburger at McDonald's for $1 and people who will go pay $20 for a hamburger at a steakhouse. There's going to be different level of clients. And so it's really important that you know who your ideal clients really are, who you're able to produce results for, and at what level. And again, some of this is a stepping stone. And I actually have another resource for you that we'll link to that's all about positioning yourself to get those higher paying clients. But I promise you, just like there's people who are looking for the $5 an hour overseas virtual assistants, there are people who are willing to pay a premium to have somebody who's in the same time zone, who has English as the same language, who's going to be a loyal team member to them. There are other things that certain people value. We all have different priorities, and part of figuring out who you want to work with and who you're going to network with is making sure you identify exactly who those people are and that you're taking the time to connect with them. So, valid fear, just like this next one. So this next submission said they have a fear of rejection when I'm so desperate. Do you guys see, like, our feelings? There's so many of us are experiencing these same things. This fear of rejection when I'm so desperate for that money so that I can leave my job, it's literally killing my body and my soul. The challenge with this particular fear and the mindset work that needs to be done around it is that it's preventing you from taking any steps forward. So my advice to this same person is, instead of waiting and sitting in the fear until everything's perfect, the price points where you need it to be, the deliverables are where you want it to be, you have to take the baby steps forward. At the Free Mama, we celebrate something called many, many wins. It's really easy to be like, I'm at point A and I want to be at point Z. But that's not the way that life works. You got to go through the rest of the alphabet to get to that end goal that you have. So focusing on those many, many wins, getting that first client, even if it's not exactly how much you want to be making, even if it's not the client that's going to get you out of the job, it's putting you in motion. And you're going to learn more through that action, even if you make mistakes along the way, than you would if you were to sit in the fear and not take any steps forward. So it's really important that we don't wallow in the fear and we take the time to focus on the next thing. What's the next step forward that I can take? Okay, our last submission around fear says, I'm afraid to price too high and then not be considered for the job, or to price too low and then sell myself short. I think this is a universal fear that people have, especially when you're bidding out those first few clients, and especially when you're having discovery calls and you know that your prospective client is also meeting with other individuals. It can be really stressful because you don't really know where you land and it feels like a guessing game. So my advice to you here is actually something that I can help you with at the end when I give away that free resource that I mentioned. You want to make sure that you're figuring out as much as you can from your prospective client, both about their budget, but also about their expectations and what they define as the right fit for them. And then making sure that you're actually that person. Because again, part of that desperation when we're first starting is that we're willing to do anything for anybody. And the reality is no one grows that way. So it's a lot of this inner work that we have to do to move past that feeling of desperation, to make sure that we aren't wanting to be considered by everybody, but that we're going through a mutual selection process when we're getting on a discovery call and really finding that right fit and making sure that we're positioning ourselves for people who are going to value and appreciate what we do, whether we're a beginner or we're advanced, it doesn't matter, but making sure there's an equal exchange of energy, both the work that you're producing and the compensation and potential other perks that they're going to be offering to you. So doing that basic tactical research, knowing where you land compared to other people, if you're charging 10x what anybody else is ever charging, it might be hard to find people because you're going to be an extreme outlier. However, with that being said, some people are always going to make price-based decisions. They're always going to look for the cheapest. On the other hand, there are more advanced higher end clients who will look at the person who's priced the cheapest and they're going to associate that with, well, that person must not be as good. And they're willing to pay a premium knowing that that might mean that they're going to get a better result. So again, we've got to move past that fear and all of the stories we're telling ourselves and look at it and go, how can I gather more information from this prospect? How can I make sure that I actually also want to work with this person? And how do I communicate that to them? And again, stick around until the end because I've got something that's going to make this so much easier for you to navigate and build your confidence as you do it. Okay, the third big theme that I encountered among all of the submissions from you all needing help around pricing your new freelancing business was confusion. And I totally get this because we don't know what we don't know. And I know for me, when I first started freelancing and I started as a social media manager, and just as I learned new things, like I didn't even know business coaching was a thing until I got a client that was a business coach. And we don't know what we don't know. And the truth is, you might be meant to do something that you don't even know exists yet. And when we don't know these things, it creates confusion. And much like the fear that can make us go small, we tend to do the same thing when we don't know something. We want to rationalize it. We want to think about it in our head until we get this big neon sign that says, okay, now you have permission to move forward. You know all of these things. But that's not really the way that confusion works in my experience. Instead, we need to be brave or courageous enough to make decisions and then move forward with the information that we have, knowing we're going to uncover new things. And if we make the wrong decision or we make a mistake or we fail, we can pivot and adjust accordingly. And the lessons we will learn from that experience are actually going to make us better off than we were before. Seriously, I promise you, I've been through this. It's true. So the first submission around confusion is said, I'm still trying to narrow down my services. I also need to start part-time until I can leave my job. First of all, I just want to say that a lot of people start freelancing as a side gig or a side hustle on top of their employment. So you are hardly alone if you are someone who's working full-time and you're trying to balance growing your business on the side. That's actually how I started as well. So you say, as a result, you can only offer about 15 hours per week. Then coming up with packages is confusing for me. So again, I've got a pricing video all about that as well. We'll link to it. And it talks about the different ways you can price your services. Now, I don't know what type of freelancer you want to be, although it sounds like you're still trying to narrow that down. So the same advice applies. Make a decision. I actually have a resource you can go check out. You can go to the freemamamovement.com/70skills, where we actually have now over 99 skills that you can offer in your virtual based business. And it might be a great place for you to look and go, cool, where are my strengths aligned? What are the things I'd like to do or I'd like to pursue and learn more about? Make a decision and then start from there. As far as packaging, you're going to want to watch this video because you might not even need packaging. And if you're confused about, well, how do I package my stuff? And it's preventing you from moving forward, it turns out you might not even need packages. So watch that video. There's lots of different ways to price your service, and I go through all of them, and you can find the one that is the best fit for you to get started. And again, you get to change and evolve as you need to, which is very exciting. And one of the best parts about being self-employed is that you get to make those decisions and you get to call those shots and you get to recalibrate as you need to. So the next sense of confusion that I was feeling from some of the submissions says, for me, it's not knowing how long it will take to do the task at hand. Okay, this is like, so good, right? If you've never done something, you don't know how long it's going to take. So if you want to be on a project-based pricing or retainer-based pricing, it's like, how do you make sure that you don't get screwed over, quite frankly? And you say, if I go hourly, will I be missing out on feeling more secure by having what could have been a retainer? And you even acknowledge, I think a lot of this could be mindset related, and it totally is. You're focused again on going from A to Z. I'm at my job. I want to leave. I want a handful of monthly retainer clients so that I still have that sense of security and I can really be a loyal team member to these handful of people and do an amazing job. The challenge is not everybody goes from A to Z. You got to hit up the rest of the alphabet, like we said. So instead, what I recommend, and I go over this in a few other places, is start with that hourly rate. If you don't know how long it takes you to do something, you need to use a free resource like Toggle. You need to track your time so that you can get a better sense of how long it will take you. Now, that being said, project-based pricing or retainer pricing is typically based off the value you provide and not related to your hours anyway. But again, until you've done it and you know the return on investment you can get for your clients, you know how much time you're saving them, you know how much revenue you're bringing in or how many leads or whatever service you're providing, you just don't have that data yet. So instead of going off of a feeling of what am I worth, imposter syndrome, all these things that are more emotional, my advice to you if you're feeling confused about how long it's going to take is let's get really logical. How long does it take? Get the experience, go in it hourly, track it, do some math. Someone told me numbers is the language of business, and it could not be more true. A lot of times we're so afraid of it. We just know how much money we want to be making, but we don't actually know. We're afraid to look at what are we spending, what's coming in, how much am I charging, how much time am I spending for that? And this even goes on as you get to projects and retainers. Do you know what that breaks down to for an hourly rate? And are you being compensated fairly? So the math continues, get a calculator, and I promise you that as you start to staircase this as well, it's gonna get clearer, and then pay attention to how you feel when you do certain things, and that will also point you in the direction of the services you wanna be offering if you're charging enough money, because again, if you're not charging enough, you will start to become resentful. Why? Because you value your time more than the money they're paying you. See how it's all coming together? Last but not least for confusion, I think gauging how much time something will take is the main reason I've charged too little for my services. So what I'm hearing is you're misfiring. So again, go back and start tracking how long it actually takes you so that you have a better understanding. Now, here we can go tactical. Now that I've been doing it for a while, I feel like I've been getting better at that, but clients are asking me to do extra work that isn't in the contract. I would just do it if it was something small and it was a few times, but it's the give them an inch, they take a mile kind of thing, and it's super hard to approach. Now, this is not the only person who asked this question. Somebody else, and again, now we're kind of transitioning into tactics, said, what do I do if I undercharge originally and then they keep adding on work? And there's actually a name for this challenge. It's called scope creep. And that's why in the Free Mama contracts that I provide to all of my students, we have an additional clause at the end that's part of both the proposal as well as the contract that says any services outside of the scope of this arrangement are going to be subject to a, usually it's $1 amount per hour, but maybe you just say reevaluation or whatever, but you're actually going to put this in your communication up front. I'm really big on teaching a concept called communication expectations and boundaries, and this is how we have them. You're right. Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Why? Because people will treat you how you let them. So if you consistently are letting people add more work to your plate and you're not being compensated, they're going to presume that that's okay with you. And so that's actually on you, not on them. And it's up to you to enforce those boundaries. With that being said, at the Free Mama, we're all about the wow factor and putting a bow on it. What that means is, like I said at the very beginning of this video, your business is only as strong as the results you get your client. If the things you're being asked to do are a part of you getting them those results, you need to be willing to do those things. So you really gotta, it's an exercise in putting yourself in the other person's shoes. And is this truly boundary infringement, where we need to make sure that we're communicating the expectation up front that will cost more money? Or is it a matter of being in integrity and providing the full value that you said that you would provide to your clients? And it can be a case-by-case basis. I wish I could say it's black and white and here's exactly what to look for, but it can be situational. And part of it, again, you've got to go off your gut and what feels good for you. My hope for you is that you start to find not just those high-paying clients, but the ones that are truly your ideal clients, where your core values are in sync, because you're going to be less likely to have any of these issues when you're working with people who really value and appreciate you, and you're really on board with their mission and vision. You're going to want to show up and serve. So let's continue our tactics conversation as we wrap up. There are 2 more questions, which these are a little more for my up leveling. So a lot of mindset in the beginning of getting started as a freelancer. We've got to work through the stuckness, the confusion, the fear, and just be willing to take that messy action and figure it out. With that being said, as we up level, we have to be sort of strategic, because if we're doing that staircase method, at some point we're going to need to increase our pricing. So that first question is, how and when do you raise your prices, and how do you communicate this nicely? And I found that to be a really interesting question. How do you communicate this nicely? It's almost like the assumption is that it's not nice to ask for more money. Again, if we're actually working with our ideal clients and we're providing an impeccable service and going above and beyond, I can pretty much guarantee you that that person's going to have no problem when you tell them that you have increased your prices. With that being said, as someone who now hires freelancers, it's not like a job. You don't just get an auto increase because you've been there for a year. You're going to have to prove the return that you're providing, whether you're saving them time, money, providing leads, whatever those things are that you've established that are their metrics for success for you. If you're delivering results, or if your scope of services is expanding, you are definitely entitled to more money and you should ask for it. With that being said, if you come to somebody who you are really just going through the motions for and you're going to ask them for more money, you should not be surprised if there's pushback, or if they, decide to let you go, or they just flat out say, yeah, I don't think you're worth that. And that can be a really hard conversation, because I just told you you're inherently worthy. But to them, again, your business is only as strong as the results you produce. So to be a business owner, you don't just show up 9 to 5 at someone else's cubicle and take home a paycheck. You're gonna have to back it up with the services you provide. And I don't want you to be intimidated if you're brand new, because if you're here and you're watching this video, you're someone who is driven and you are motivated, and you should want to get your clients results, because the more results you get them, the more impact you can have and the more income you can earn for yourself. So as far as how and when, again, I would say when you're renewing a contract, so you should be using contracts. That's a really great segue into, hey, let's talk about all the services we're providing. What are you pleased with? What could go better? And it's also a time to reevaluate that contract moving forward, which is a really great time if you are going to change the rate that you're charging or the scope of your services. And again, as far as how to do it, I recommend have a Zoom call, meet face to face, even if it's virtually. Don't just send an email and say, hey, my rates went up. Like, I know that these conversations are uncomfortable. Being confrontational isn't easy, but it also shows a sign of professionalism that the other person's gonna respect a lot more. So that's kind of the how and when. Okay, and then the last question, when can you increase your rates? Now, we kind of talked about that for your existing clients, but a part of that staircase method that I was telling you about is that you can increase your rates every single time you take on a new client. You get to control your pricing. So I want you all to take a deep breath. I know it's scary when you're first starting as a freelancer, and I know that we want to have everything right and we want to get it right the first time. But sometimes you have to be willing to do that inner work, that personal development. You have to be willing to get really objective, which is hard when we're starting a new business because we can feel emotional about it, especially when we're feeling desperate and we really want and need for it to work. But we need to be objective and look at the numbers. And to follow the staircase method, you can literally give yourself a raise. You are in control of your pricing and your services. You can give yourself a raise every time you take on a new client. In fact, that's exactly what that method is. And I encourage it because you're going to build your confidence as you go. The last thing though is make sure you're paying attention to the feedback you're getting on discovery calls. If everybody's telling you that your prices are too high, either they actually are too high or you are not pre-qualifying your leads very well and you're networking in the wrong groups, okay? So come over to the Free Mama Movement Facebook group. We would love to be giving you feedback if that is your challenge. We would also love to be able to help you navigate these discovery calls, how you can pre-qualify and all of that jazz. Now, I told you at the beginning that I had a free resource for you, and I meant it. We have what is called the discovery call cheat sheet. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do and say to make sure you land more clients at the rate that you want. Now, after you sign up for that freebie, in full transparency, you'll also be invited to enroll in my prospect to paid training, where I'm going to actually walk you through the 6 steps of how to go from a prospect to a paying client. And that's going to include that contract template and proposal template that I referenced earlier on with that amendment clause. So that's a really great opportunity for people who want those tools and resources and that in-depth training. But that discovery call cheat sheet, that is yours for free. And we will put the link to that as well as how to join the Facebook group and anything else you might need to know down below this video. So if I answered your question, let me know by liking this video. Let me know that you found this helpful. And if you have another question around pricing or something else you'd like to see me answer here on Free Mama TV, be sure to let me know that as well. Subscribe to my channel. Share this with anybody that you think it would be beneficial for. Make sure you're connected with me on social media as well for the next time I do a poll. I show up live in the Facebook group every single Monday to answer your questions as well as go live with the training. So I hope to see you in there, and best of luck to you as you have your next discovery call and you learn to price your freelancing business. Or the, dang it. I'm not going to finish before my call, so I'm gonna have to come back.